Welcome to Come and See, your podcast for finding truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. With host and founder Richard Case and co-host and retreat leader Kathy Ricconi. Join us every weekday at this time to discuss news, spend time in the Word, and receive answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. And now your host, Richard Case.
Well, good morning, Kathy.
Good morning.
Here we are in mid-September, fall time. I know in New Hampshire, the colors probably start coming out at the end of the month, right? 1st of October.
That's when they should be coming out, but they're coming early this year for sure. We've already seen, just peekaboo colors right now, but we're already seeing some peekaboo out there for sure.
Yeah,
Colorado. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out.
Yeah. Colorado, we're just about ready to start seeing the colors, and they happen fairly quick. Mm-hmm. But in Colorado, I think I mentioned this before, the neat thing about Colorado is because of the temperature and the trees up in the high mountains, which starts around 10, 12,000 feet above sea level, the colors change first, and they go to what they say was peak, and it's like a brilliant. All of it is brilliant at the same time, and then literally the next week, that'll be a little bit less, and then the one below that, a little
further down the mountain,
will be brilliant, and then 2 weeks later, the ones at the top probably are now gone. The next one's a little bit less, and then the one below that is brilliant. And so we get to follow it all the way down. It starts in about the third week of September, and it goes all the way down as it comes to Denver around Thanksgiving.
Oh wow, that lasts a long time.
It's a very long fall, which you have to travel to see, but it's brilliant. So Linda and I will be our normal. Of course, we have our daughter Michelle, who's working on physical things in the hospital, so we'll have to see where that plays. But generally speaking, we go up into the mountains for 2 weeks. We have a good, actually one of our leaders that leads retreats has a condo up there at Beaver Creek in Vail.
Oh, fun!
And he says, "Hey, it's yours. You can go use it." We do. So
that's a nice little perk right there.
It's a big benefit. We so appreciate that.
Well, and then you're coming to New Hampshire in October to see our fall too.
Then we get to go to New Hampshire and do those retreats and see the beautiful fall there.
Lots of fun.
So it's really quite fun. But we're talking about the covenant and a reminder that the covenant is, "I bless you to make you a blessing," God says. All the families of the earth will be blessed through your participation in that, in your sphere. I'm going to bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. So that as we look at, particularly in today's world, and in my discussions with everybody, is things are not easy.
Right.
And it's more difficult, and there's more complications, and there's surprises, and there's things that don't work very well. And seems to me there's a lot of things against us and circumstances that happen. Just had a phone call actually with a couple that I'm discipling, and they had a toilet that was noisy. And they said, "Oh, we got to get this taken care of." And so they brought a plumber out, and the plumber, did some work and said, "Oh, you've got rotting pipes in your house."
Oh no!
That have to be replaced. And of course, the reaction is, "This isn't good."
Right.
Because that's not easy to do, and it's expensive. And it's a view of, oh man, we don't want this to happen. This is going to be bad. And see, in the covenant, God doesn't say, "I exempt you from this stuff." And by the way, you're in a world of kill, steal, and destroy, entropy. Guess what? Anything that you're involved in is going to have things that are going to go to basically decay. Including
the whole concept of entropy is that
including pipes, that they ultimately over time, and they've been in the house for 15, 16 years, and I don't think they built it, so they probably bought another somebody's house. well, ultimately, those are going to decay and rot, and they have to be replaced because you're just part of the world. And God doesn't say, I exempt you from the world.
Right.
I exempt you from the problems of the world. You're going to experience pipes that don't work, air conditioning that doesn't work, furnaces that need to be replaced, appliances that have to be replaced. We were just, I think it was actually Dan was telling me that your husband was saying that appliances used to last 25 years. Interesting enough, because of how they built them, and they just got cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, and building them more expensive to buy.
Right. Well, and they've started building them to be quote unquote eco-friendly. And the eco-friendly regulations have made them not last as long.
Right. And so now they only last 6 to 7 years, which means, maybe I get to have one that lasts a little bit longer, but fundamentally, I'm going to be in that same boat. So the viewpoint is, well, this is bad, and this is going to be expensive, and I don't like it. And God, remember, says your first line of attack is always to say, well, okay, I don't need to live this way, and I know you're going to do something because of the covenant.
Right.
I'm going to bless you to make you a blessing. You can trust me even when at the moment you don't see how is this going to turn into blessing. It seems to me like it's just going to be completely negative and harmful. God says, well, believe the covenant. I will make it good. I will bless you to make you a blessing. And then, by the way, and I see this being a big issue, is I'm going to bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. And a lot of people are confused by that, about, well, not a lot of people bless me per se, in terms of our definition of blessing. And when we would think of somebody blessing me, what do we tend to think of? If somebody
we tend
else
to think financially a lot of times, for one thing.
They're doing something to benefit me, and they're giving away something to me or helping me be benefited, and it's obvious that I see it. And if they don't do that, the cursing is what they're harming me. They're hurting me. They're trying to hurt me. But really, it's much more profound than that, and that is that if you look at relationships, you're either with a spouse, with close friends, a small group, a church, business. Really, it's how do you process your differences of opinion, your disagreements.
Oh, interesting.
And if we process it well, what do we come to? Is that ultimately, and it goes at different levels. For me and Linda, or you and Dan, what is the resolution to when you disagree? And this is
going to God in unity and allowing the Holy Spirit to bring us to agreement with Him.
And so, yes, you have disagreement. Yes, you have different thoughts. Yes, you have different perspectives. God uses that, but always with a couple, because your two are become one. He says, come with me until you see what I see.
Right.
And it will get resolved. And all I'm asking you both is to honor and respect each other and walk together until you see it, actually maintaining your position until you see.
Right.
And again, it's really simple. Either, hey, Linda, what Rich is saying is really my will. Hey, Rich, what Linda is saying is my will. And neither one of you know my will, and you got more to go. Okay. So you're called to that. Okay. If you have let's say a inner circle, you've invited them into participating in what? Seeking God's will.
Right.
He says, actually, with them, you do the same thing. They have different thought, different opinion. Now, they're going to be at a different level because they don't have the intimacy or the time that they're going to give to you. But what they will do, if you have a heart to go, is, I can't confirm that yet, or stay with it, or not.
And not their opinion, where you're not looking for their opinion, you're looking for them to go to God and seek him for an answer or a confirmation.
Right.
So two different things sometimes.
Right. Okay. Then you have other Christians, let's say small groups, church people. They disagree with you. Let's say, which we've just gone through. Let's say the vaccine. And a question comes up. They're not your spouse, and they're not your inner circle. So you haven't processed this in terms of I'm seeking what God's answer is. I'm just part of a community.
Right.
And somebody says, well, what do you think about the vaccine? And somebody says, oh, I think it's a good thing. I'm going to take it. Other people say, that's a really awful thing. I'm not taking it. Okay, do you disagree? Yes.
Yes.
You disagree. Now the question of blessing and cursing is around what do you do next? Is that how do you process that? And you have two ways of doing it. And the Bible talks about both. Is that well, let's together. Do you have a heart to maybe see other things that you don't see? And so if somebody says, I think the vaccine is good, instead of saying it's not. The question is rather simpler of, well, tell me information that you've got that would say it's good. Okay, I'll do that. And then they in turn should say to you, said, I'm not sure about this. Well, what information do you have that it's not good? Okay, let's process that just to see where we respond to that information. Does it change our thought at all? Maybe yeah, maybe no. And let's say we wind up with, we did talk about it, but I still believe this way, I still believe that way.
But handled with honor and respect is one thing versus going to divisiveness and attack and judgment. I'm right, you're wrong.
Yeah. And then what I would say to them, which is different than what I think, let's say for us, is I can appreciate your position. I would urge you that don't take it because somebody else said so, but rather you go to God and get it confirmed for you.
Right.
Which he will do. I know he will do it if you have a heart to go. And you don't even need to include me in that process. So
right.
You just go and seek God and come to it. And if I would urge you to do it, and of course if you don't, it's fine. You decide what you're going to do. Ultimately, it's well, I've decided this and you've decided that. Should that impact our relationship? No.
It should not.
No,
Right.
because it's okay. And this is what Romans 14 is all about, is get decided what is your position. Stand on that position. Don't put your position on somebody else, and don't let somebody else put their position on you.
Right.
You just say, you know what, it's okay that we disagree.
Right.
Because this is not an absolute thing.
Yeah, and there's a difference there in the the absolute there. It's not something that is spoken of. You're not talking about just disregarding truth in the Bible.
Right. Okay. Then you go to the next level. This is business. This is non-believers. This is people that serve you, people that you're involved in, your bosses, and they can do something because they have power, and they come against you, or they make an absurd decision, or it impacts you in a very negative way, or you're the guy that is helping you build your house or something else doesn't do something that's right, and then they don't care and they're coming against you, and it's unjust because you see that, wait a minute, this isn't right, and it hurts you or you're offended. Okay, God says, first of all, go to forgiveness. You stay in blessing, stay in forgiveness. Then you ask me, God speaking, what do you want me to do about that? Do you want me to go pursue that person and say, let's sit down and talk about it? A lot of times God says, no, don't bother because they're not willing to. Or yeah, go ahead. Okay, so you sit down and say, I understand what's happened here. I know that you have this power against me, or you've come against me, or done this or done that. Would you be willing to process that together? If they say yes, that's where blessing is valid.
Right.
Now, they haven't agreed. So, see, they haven't given me anything. All they've done is say, I'm willing to actually process this to come to a satisfactory conclusion that we both can come to in a way that it doesn't mean we're fully reconciled or I agree with you. It's just that we process through to a satisfactory resolution. Great. Well, then they're in blessing. If they say, no, I don't care, I'm going to go do what I want to do, and I'm coming against you anyway. Or I say I care, but I'm going to spin it and get defensive and basically persuade why you're wrong, and I'm not really willing to process it. They've moved into cursing because they're not blessing you, they're cursing you. Why?
Right.
The blessing piece of it is willingness to go all the way through to a good resolution.
That's good.
And for the beginning, with you as your husband, it's unity, complete unity of God's will. Inner
Right.
circle, really the same thing. The rest of them is there's a lot of times you can live with disagreement, and it doesn't impact because you're not bent on convincing them of anything.
Right.
You just said, well, let's keep each other in honor and respect and process as far as we can. And if you've done something to hurt me or you've offended me or you're coming against me, yeah, that needs to move to a resolution of justice being served. And God will help us if you have to. Even a non-believer, I can process that. If they're not willing to do it, they've stepped into the cursing piece because I'm not willing to process any further. And I'm actually going to come against you. And God says, okay, now, in matter of fact, remember, he says this, don't you take vengeance, because vengeance is what?
It's his.
It's his. I'll take care of it. Don't worry. I'll take care of it. What I want you to do is dust your feet off, move on, even if it did impact you. It caused you a negative consequence. It impacted your work. It impacted your situation. And you now have to go do something else, including you got terminated or you got released. And God says, I still have covenant for you. Don't worry. I'll take care of that. I'm going to put you into something else that's going to bless you to make you a blessing. Trust me, and you don't need to take vengeance. I'll take care of it. So the aspect of blessed to be a blessing, and I'll bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you, is that becomes our life.
Right.
And by the way, is that going to be challenged all the time? Sure, because why?
Because we live in a fallen world.
Well, you're living in the world, and you got stuff coming at you all the time with
Yeah.
self-centered people. So he doesn't exempt you from decay. He doesn't exempt you from self-centered people that are absurd and hurting you and doing things against you, and they're not making life easy.
Right.
He says, but I can
Well,
still...
and then there's our own self-centeredness that can come in.
Yeah.
So we can cause some of it too.
He said, if I was you, I'd walk with me. Okay, well, let's look at, as we conclude, and we've gone through the aspect of all the blessings that God promises, the requirements on our part to basically walk with him and stay with him. And he says, hey, I work both sides of the deal. I have my spirit within you to cause you to have a heart to follow me and just stay with me. Because remember how simple this is. He said the purpose is for me to demonstrate that life is true, blessing is true, the superabundant life is true, restoration is true. He says why? Because it glorifies me, God speaking,
Right.
to demonstrate who I am, which is benevolent.
Right.
Where? In the kingdom. He says in the world I can't deliver it because you're in the natural. You have to be in my kingdom. And if you're in my kingdom, what have you done? You've surrendered your will to mine and said, I'll be with you where? In the kingdom, and I'm the king. I can
Yes.
deliver this in the kingdom, and it'll translate itself into the world because that's where you live. But you can't receive it unless you're in the kingdom. And then to who? My chosen people, my special treasure, who walks with me in the kingdom.
Right.
So he said, that's the requirement. Let me deliver it to you. So he gives us this great, as we summarize here over the next two sessions, go to Psalm 145. And
Okay.
first of all, this is a great summary, actually, of it. 145, 1 through 9 to start with.
Sure. I will extol you, my God, O King, and I will bless your name forever and ever. Every day I will bless you, and I will praise your name forever and ever. Great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised, and his greatness is unsearchable. One generation shall praise your works to another, and shall declare your mighty acts. I will meditate on the glorious splendor of your majesty, and on your wondrous works. Men shall speak of the might of your awesome acts, and I will declare your greatness. They shall utter memory of your great goodness, and shall sing of your righteousness. The Lord is gracious and full of compassion, slow to anger, and great in mercy. The Lord is good to all, and his tender mercies are over all his works.
Okay. Let's start at verse 9. This is covenant, statement of covenant. The Lord is what?
Is good to all.
To who?
To all.
The lucky ones?
Nope, all.
Yeah, maybe some, maybe not. I've decided, no, you're not, you didn't make it, and your life is relegated to not being good. He says, no, the nature of God is goodness to all of his children.
Right. I love, you talked about this a lot in this last week when we were doing this taping.
Yeah.
Over and over, one of the things that I heard you say was talking about how covenant truly is God's mode of operation.
Yes.
And we've got to get our head around what that means truly, because if that is his mode of operation, that is always, and we just have to step in. And I think sometimes we really do, even if we believe covenant, we don't operate from the get-go of knowing, okay, I have this problem, but God's mode of operation is covenant.
Right.
Therefore, he already has a solution that is good.
Right. Right.
And we need to start there so that we can then process through to what his steps are.
Yeah, and when you think about that, you say start there. In a sense, why is it difficult for us to start there?
Because what we see in front of us is not good.
Yeah.
And so that can be, it instills fear, doubt, all kinds of different things. It's overwhelming to us sometimes. We're in a fallen world and we see that, but we need to immediately turn that to see God's goodness and know this is where he operates from. He operates from covenant.
Yeah,
that's who he is.
Exactly
so I start there.
Yeah. So that it looks like my good, which has now just been harmed, isn't going to be, that itself doesn't look like it's going to get restored. This power that's coming against me is changing things. I thought it was going to look like this, and I was actually enjoying it looking like that.
Right.
And my good is now going to be harmed or changed or altered. And then, by the way, I don't see how you're going to do that. It doesn't make sense to me, particularly where I'm at. Looked really good to me, and now it's all changing, and I can't see the outcome of it. So it's hard to start there. But God says you can trust it because why? Well, I'm good to all. And it says tender mercies over all his works. Now this is where the Hebrew is so much more powerful.
Right.
Tender mercies in the Hebrew is covenant loyalty.
Right.
Is I'm loyal to the covenant, and that's over all of my works. That I'm gonna bring covenant to you because that's who I am and that's my nature and that's my intention. Is that over all of what I'm going to deliver, which I just said I'm going to be good to everybody, it's all based on the covenant. I'm going to bless you to make you a blessing. Okay. So now let's go back up as we start in verse 1, which is really cool, is what is it that we're doing as we speak it? What does it say?
Because I will extol you, my God, O King, and I will bless your name forever and ever.
And then verse 2 says what?
Every day I will bless you, and I will praise your name forever and ever.
Okay, so the way we bless God, and this is an interesting part of the whole thing. God says, I'm going to bless you to make you a blessing. Part of your blessing is actually blessing who?
Blessing God.
Blessing God. Okay.
Isn't that wild for a second when you stop and think about the fact that I can bless God?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I see how he blesses me, but just the fact that me being who I am, all my faults, all of whatever, he still sees me as a blessing.
And
when I turn and bless him.
And say, okay, and then he describes, how do you bless him? In verse 2, what does it say? Every day what?
Every day I will bless you and I will praise your name forever and ever.
Okay, you're giving praise to the very God who's delivering covenant.
Right.
When?
Every day.
Every day. Okay, how about when you're in the middle of trouble?
Even in the middle of trouble.
How about when you can't see the answer?
Even then.
How about when my good is getting altered?
Absolutely.
Every day.
Yeah.
Okay, now why? And this is interesting enough. What blesses God? We'll see it be able to be played out, but there's a truth about why he put in there every day, because he knows, and we know, as far as we're concerned, is every day a fantastic day? No. Today, something happened. Today I got problem. Today I got a conflict. Today, it's not working too well.
Right.
Why? He said, well, in the world, you're going to have what? Trouble.
You're going to have trouble.
Okay, how, on what basis today can I praise God?
Based on who he is.
Okay.
We know he is a God who functions from covenant, and therefore he will resolve this.
Okay. And it's blessing him is I trust you.
Right.
Blessing
and I
him.
think even when you look at verse 1, and I think it's not a mistake that he says, I will extol you, my God, O King.
Yeah.
That O King right there, he is coming in a position of surrender immediately.
Right.
And I think that's not to be missed, because that is such an important part of how we're able then to bless him and praise his name in the midst of it, is a posture of surrender and a heart to follow him into covenant.
Because and again, how simple this is. If and I'm glad you got this. If I can say, I praise you, O King, what does that mean? Where am I?
I'm in the kingdom.
Well, I'm in the kingdom. See,
and
I
I'm
recognize
surrendered to him.
I recognize I'm in the kingdom. Now, remember, in the kingdom, I'm with the King. I do have the trouble. I've experienced the trouble. But he says, you can praise me every day, because why? God says, you bless me that you believe that I'm going to resolve it. And you start with the covenant. You believe the covenant. And you're driven now to say, okay, Father, how do you want me to walk with you out of the difficulty? And I'm not going to accept it or go to resignation. I know you're going to resolve this and give me a place where actually it's going to be blessing to me, even though I can't see it and my good is being altered. And he says, yeah, because you trust me. And he said, what blesses me, God speaking, is that you trust me.
Yes.
Because why? Well, I'm going to do it. And then, by the way, you know that he's going to, he says, by the way, I will have demonstration that you trust me by what? You praise me. What?
And declaring his works and praising who he is.
I don't have it solved yet, but I declare and praise you. And he says, then you'll do it from one generation to another. Declare the mighty acts. Meditate on your glorious splendor of your majesty and on your wondrous works. And I'm going to speak of them and declare your greatness. Okay, now, how can you speak of and meditate on and experience his wondrous work? What would have to happen?
You have to be experiencing them.
I would have to be. So he is saying that it does translate into reality. He doesn't say it's a false praise.
Right.
I praise you that I'm in this awful situation, and then you stay in that awful situation and you never see God at work. That becomes a little bit of an empty praise.
Right.
And now it's a mechanical thing. I guess I'm supposed to, but I never get to see anything actually happen. Which is, by the way, why a lot of Christians get discouraged is, I prayed and nothing happened. I prayed and nothing happened. And God says, yeah, because you're not in the kingdom, letting me deliver to you this marvelous covenant that I have for you, because I will. And when I do, which you then start to meditate on and believe it, you'll reinforce it happened. I got to see it happen. It was supernatural. And when that happens, that drives me to the confidence of, well, then it still will happen.
Right.
When
Which,
I have
by the
trouble.
way, is another plug for journaling.
Yeah.
And honestly, for small groups. I'm going to plug both in that, because journaling and writing down, keeping record of the things that God does and says, when we are in that season and we can go back and see how he resolved something else, that helps us to stand firm in the fact that he is who he says he is and will do what he say he will do. When we're in community with other believers and we're in the middle of a sticky wicket, as you say, or a really difficult season or whatever, and we're seeking God and we're hearing how he is moving and working in covenant in their lives, that also encourages us and reminds us who he is. There's such importance to keeping track of those things. I mean, the Israelites always did that. Rocks of remembrance. Remember what I've done, so
Right.
that when you're standing somewhere else, you can go back and say, that is who I am. Stand on the fact that that's who I am, and know I will do it again.
Right. So as we conclude this session, we'll finish this whole section off tomorrow, it's God will deliver the covenant to all. We will bless him by trusting him and praising him that he will. And then the truth is that when he does, journal it, process it, receive it, share it. And the more that you talk about it, the more it reinforces it's true. And the next time you have a problem, which will be pretty soon,
Yes.
you still stay in praise, because it's going to happen. And even under the most difficult circumstances, is that, well, yeah, it's still going to happen. And that's why the covenant is so beautiful. So send in your questions. We'd love to have them at questions@afjministry.com. Put it on the YouTube. We'll respond to it of your perception on this, or any experience you're having with it, or even questions you have about it. But the covenant is real, and God says, I'm loyal to that covenant. And you can trust me. And we'll pick up the rest of Psalm 145 tomorrow.
Great. Thanks so much. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Looking forward to wrapping up covenant discussion tomorrow. It's been a great lesson.
Right.
Thank
See
you.
soon. Yep.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Come and See, your podcast for truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. Send us your questions and comments, and tune in tomorrow for more answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. Remember, God's will is best and none better. His truth brings peace in this world of chaos.